Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So my presentation today is more broadly based on my research interests rather than my specific projects. And my research interests fall within what I call indigenous critical geographies. So what is known to most geographers about indigenous geographies is based in concept of colonialism and settler colonialism. These are not new topics in the field of geography and its cognitive fields. And there's been much research that's been done into this. The general colonial history of the discipline of geography is also well known. I don't know if any of you have heard of the saying that geography is traditionally considered one of the whitest and most male of the social sciences. Also, the link between governmental policy, land use, and impacts on both humans and the environment has been a topic that has been well researched within the field of geography. So these are what most geographers know. What most geographers may not know is the specific effects that governmental, environmental, and ecological and social policy has on indigenous individuals. The geographies of the body, which has been a new and growing field, how does this relate to indigenous people, especially in the area of the conflict between Western and indigenous bodies' knowledge about medicine and science? The academic gap. This may be my personal opinion, but it's an opinion that's also shared by many people within the field. There's not enough indigenous knowledge within geography. And also current events that surround us. What are the connections of events like the Dakota Access Pipeline protests and other like protests to the state of indigenous settler relations in the United States? So largely speaking, my project is centered around researching the nature of settler and indigenous relations using the United States as a context, specifically the upper Midwest where I'm from. In this project, I will use a relationship to analyze conflicts over natural resources, economic policies, policing, application of medical knowledge to indigenous bodies, among other things, and their roles in shaping this relationship, both in the past and the present, and the ways that these can continue to shape these relationships and conflicts in the future. I also want to highlight the thoughts, the anxieties, and the optimisms on both sides of this conflict, both settlers and indigenous peoples. While my project is focused on indigenous people, I believe that in order to really fully understand the full context of what is going on, you also have to take a look at the thoughts and the viewpoints of non-indigenous actors within these, because they have their own motivations and their own reasoning for doing things, and they may not necessarily be a good guy versus bad guy conflict. Why does this project matter? From an economic and ecological standpoint, the increasing need for fields and natural resources may lead to conflict with indigenous tribes who either possess these resources, or in the case of the Dakota Access Pipeline, whole territory, whether it's actual sovereign territory or territory that was promised up through trees, that pipelines and transport routes run through. For example, with the Dakota Access Pipeline, the major thing is that it is running through land that was promised to the Dakota tribe through a treaty signed in 1851. And additionally, from a territorial standpoint, the pipeline is planned to run underneath the Missouri River, which is a major water source for the tribe as well as millions of other people that live downstream. From a social viewpoint, further clarification of the complex sovereignties that indigenous people are subject to, such as where do treaty rights and legal protections begin and where do they end? Does it depend on whether you live on a reservation or off the reservation, whether certain laws will apply to you or not? And also from a scientific and medical standpoint, further exploration is needed of the ways that indigenous modes of knowledge about the body collide and conflict with European American forms of medical knowledge. For example, in my master's work, I researched a way that Native Americans viewed autopsy versus kind of the European American viewpoint of autopsy, and how those conflicted on both a scientific level as well as a spiritual religious level. And just quick, but that is the end of my presentation. Thank you guys.